Hello, everyone. Welcome to Porch Chat. I am Deb, and I am so sorry that we are late tonight, but I am on a little family vacation, but I think it's really important that we join each other tonight. I just want to, we were at White Rock Mountain. Oh my gosh. So that's why we're late. We were in the mountains in Arkansas. And we were just, oh my gosh, some of the beautiful scenery that we've seen. Look at the Facebook post, look at my videos. It is just amazing. We seen so much of God's creation in one moment. So I am, like I said, once again, I apologize that we're late tonight, but I'm really glad that you are here with me. Tonight, we're going to be talking about something that is a little uncomfortable. But I'm really glad that you're here. So tonight's conversation is going to be a little bit tender and than the last couple weeks. But we've talked about questions and asking God questions. We've talked about seasons when faith felt quiet. But tonight we're going to talk about something that many people carry quietly just in their hearts: church hurt. This is a tough one. And if before we go any further, I guess I gotta just say this clearly. If this is part of your story, you are not alone. If church hurt is part of your story, you are not alone. You don't have to explain it here. That is not why we're here. You don't have to defend it here. Not why we're here. This is just simply a place where we can acknowledge it gently, that we have been hurt by the church. This is not a night to blame churches or point fingers. I am going to tell you that it is not about that. And it is also not a night for us to just pretend that church hurt doesn't happen at all. This is a night where we can sit in the middle of something very, very real together. And we can make space for healing. Because sometimes people have been hurt by words that felt judgmental. People had been hurt by expectations that felt heavy, and moments where they felt unseen, and in situations that didn't reflect the love that they expected, in a place that they expected it most. Now, the hardest part of all of this is sometimes it happens in a place where people were hoping to feel safe, in a place where they were hoping to feel loved and feel accepted. Now, a while back, I showed a video of a gentleman sitting on a bar stool, and he said he felt more comfortable on a bar stool than he did in a church pew. It's because that's where he felt accepted. That's where he felt his people were. We all have different ways of feeling accepted. We all have different hurts. We all have different things in our lives that speak to us. And when people are hurt in these situations, many people do not walk away from God. They walk away from something that did not feel like Him. And another thing that I want to remind you of tonight, and like I said, this is going to not be an easy conversation for me or for you, but it's one that has to be said because we need to start healing from this. We need to start healing from the inside. I know for me, this has been something that I didn't realize that was so personal. And it really is. Because just because it happened in a church doesn't mean it didn't hurt. I want to repeat that. Just because it happened in a church doesn't mean it did not hurt in your heart. So tonight we are going to be talking about that. And I want you to think about this. Have you ever experienced something in a faith setting that didn't set right with you? I just want to start with that. Have you ever experienced something, good morning, or hi, Kathy, good afternoon, in a church setting that didn't set right with you? Now, I have been on both sides of the coin. So in defense of some of the good pastors out there and the good people in the churches and the whatever, I was a pastor for many years. And so I got to this new congregation and I was there for about 6 months. And about we started praying for this lady at the church every Sunday. I'd ask how their mom was doing, and they would say how she was doing. And I never knew. Nobody told me, as this newish pastor, that this lady was a longtime member of the church that just did not attend anymore. So every week I'd ask, hey, how's your mom doing? We'd be praying for her. We would do these things. And these people were hurt by me because I never went and visited her, but nobody told me that she was part of the church. Nobody told me that she was a longtime member and that she wasn't on the rolls. And I never thought to even go down that road. Does your mom need a visit? I hurt people in the church as a pastor, and I never, ever meant to. I would have been there. Somebody would have asked me to come and visit this lady and tell me that she was part of the church and could you please pay her a visit. I would have been there. So church hurt does happen, sometimes not on purpose. I have also good morning. Oh my gosh, it's been a long day. Hi, Margie. Good evening. But church hurt does happen. It's also been to me on the other flip side. As a pastor, I've been hurt by the church. Because as a pastor, people didn't understand that I had a family, that I had other responsibilities, that I didn't know that this lady was a member of the church. So therefore, I did not visit her, which whatever. But they pulled away, and this church became just hostile. They felt like I did not love them, because I never went and visited somebody I didn't know was part of the church. I didn't not know that she was part of my flock at that time. But they become hostile. I had my car keyed during a sermon at church. I had things happen in that church that they wouldn't, it was wrong. It was wrong. I had people stand up in the middle of the sermon and say that we employ you. How dare you say that to us? When I told them that my job was to call people to Christ, and if that didn't happen, that I should put my resignation in because my ministry wasn't working there. Time and time again, we're hurt by things in faith communities, and sometimes it's not even purposely done. It is done with no fault of our own, but it's also done because there's people that don't understand what we're going through. So have you ever experienced in a faith setting something that didn't set right with you? In another church, I experienced that the church had hidden money from the diocese, from the conference, because what they didn't know didn't hurt them. As a pastor, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. It made me feel dishonest. It made me feel like I was trying to block something. Many different ways that we have been hurt in a church. But once again, church hurt isn't about blaming churches. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about just acknowledging that church hurt happens. And like I said, just because it happens in a church doesn't mean it does not hurt. And it doesn't mean it's something we carry with us. It's that we don't carry it with us. And when we're hurt in a church setting, it becomes really hard to separate sometimes what people did from who God is. What people did. That pastor did not love our congregation enough to even go visit somebody who was a patriarch of this church. And the pastor didn't know. But the family was still hurt. But the family looked at that. How did they separate that from God? Does God love us enough to see us through? Does God love us enough to visit us? When you're hurt in a church setting, it is very, very difficult to separate that from time to time. But Margie, that the thing is they didn't realize that. I didn't realize that. But there are times where we are hurt and we are not acknowledging that hurt. And so therefore it goes unfollowed, it goes unseen. And until we can voice our hurts, we cannot ever know the other side of the story. Yeah. And this is right. You have to follow through and you have to do your research. You have to understand why. Like I said, church hurt does happen. And Janice, I'm sure that you know that. But it does happen in many different settings and many different things. But God says, and this is the absolute beautiful thing, God says, God stays close to those who are hurting, not distant from them. God is sitting there. So if you are hurting tonight, if you feel that you have been hurt by in a church setting or in a faith-based setting, first of all, you are not alone. Second of all, let's take a step back and see really where the hurt came from. And maybe if there's somebody that we could talk to about it and see if it was intentional, if it was a God thing or if it was a human thing. Because I want you to know tonight that it is okay to acknowledge the hurt. But healing often begins when we can be honest with ourselves. Maybe we said something, or maybe we did something, or maybe it was like me that really didn't know. But the thing is that church hurt still happened. It still happened. I think sometimes when we're comfortable sharing details, so I don't know if you've ever been hurt in that church setting, once again. If you're comfortable sharing some details, share them in the comments and let us kind of chat about it a little bit. But I really think it's important that we know that as we're going through our lives and our faith story, our relationship with God doesn't change because something happened. Now, I want to go back to this because remember, let's see here, I want to bring this back up because this is so important. Because people, right here, sometimes people are hurt by words that felt judgmental. Maybe they judge you by what you were wearing when you walked in the door. Maybe you haven't been to church in a long time. You didn't know the dress code. You didn't understand their language and you felt judged going in that church and you were hurt. So you thought, I am never going back again. Those people are just wrong. But maybe you just didn't understand their culture or they didn't understand yours. But the thing is that if you felt words that felt judgmental were said to you and you're holding on to them, I think God's telling you tonight, wait a minute, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. How about expectations that felt heavy? Maybe people expected more out of you because you go to church, or maybe they expect more out of you because of who you are, or what you do in the church, or what your role is in the church. But maybe expectations feel really heavy and it felt like, oh yeah, everything always lands on me. It's the same 5 people to do all of the same things and take care of everything in the church. Have you ever been there? I know I have. I have said those words. Hi, Rhonda. What about the moments? And I think this is one of the biggest things that someone has felt unseen. They felt unseen in a place where they expected to be loved. And maybe they didn't get the love that they expected from a church. How many times and not even in a church, at work, in our families or whatever, when somebody new comes in, we want them to transform to who we are and what we are instead of loving them and getting to know them where they're at. And like I said, this just isn't in a church. This is every place. It really is. Hi, Tammy. But this is every place. Because the thing is that when we are judged by how we talk, by how we live, by how we wear our hair, by how we look, our body structure, when we are judged by, just outside appearances. And sometimes we're the ones judging and we don't even know it. Maybe we're the ones that are hurting other people without even knowing it. Hi, Chad. Maybe we are the ones who are hurting people in their faith walk without knowing it. But the one thing is I do want you to know that even in a church setting, people can misrepresent God, but they are not God. Just because they have a role in the church does not make them God. And just because you don't understand maybe the way the church talks, maybe the actions that they're doing, maybe the sacraments that they're understanding, maybe just because you don't understand that, you feel like you're being judged, and maybe you're not. Maybe they're just expecting that you understand. For instance, my son Chuck is 32, has special needs. My mom has got rosaries because she's Catholic. He wanted a rosary so bad because he's seen my mom and dad pray in the rosary. And so after my dad passed away, my mom had a bunch of rosaries at the nursing home. And so Chuck wanted one. And he took this rosary and he was Googling how to do the rosary and how to say the rosary because he remembers going to adoration with my mom and dad and then praying the rosary. And for some reason, it just sinks in his heart and he wanted to do this, but he didn't understand the prayers. He didn't understand all of the things that happened. And so he was very frustrated, but he didn't understand. So we broke it down a little bit and did the rosary according to Chuck so he could kind of understand it better. But we use languages in churches that people don't understand, and we expect them to just come and fit into everything instead of explaining it. Like when somebody says in a church, give your testimony. Can you share your testimony? It's kind of scary. It's kind of intimidating even at times. But if somebody says, hey, can you tell me about your story? Can you tell me about when maybe you've seen people be kind to you and shown you love where you didn't even feel you deserved it, instead of using the word grace, instead of using the word testimony, instead of using the churchy words? And that's one thing that I did for 3 years. I took all churchy words out of my vocabulary. I grew up Catholic. And then I was a United Methodist pastor, and I found churchy words in churches in ways that didn't make sense to me. And if they didn't make sense to me and I was just coming in, or I was just doing this, or I was just doing that, how could it make this sense to somebody that was never churched? So sometimes words that feel judgmental could just be misunderstood. It could be mistakes. It could be things that people are not doing that, but then your expectations feel a little bit heavy. How many times have you ever walked into church and, now, I know this does happen. Been there, done that. I've been part of it. But the thing is, oh, look at that. That's a family with 3 kids. We could really use them in here. Well, we go and we overextend ourselves. We love on them. And then we want them to be on leadership. We want them to be part of the Sunday school or whatever. But the thing is maybe the expectations for them feel too heavy, and then they don't come back because they thought, oh my gosh, I just don't even know if I want to be part of that. So maybe your hurt has been different. So in the comments, have you ever been hurt in a faith setting? Come on, guys, talk to me. Tell me, have you ever, this is a hard topic, just a yes or no, raise your hand, whatever it is, give me a thumbs up or whatever it is, but let me know. Am I the only one that either has hurt somebody in a church setting or been hurt by somebody in a church setting? I don't think so, but I am not. So Kurt says, hi, Kurt. It's nice to have you here. God is good. People, not so much. People seem to go to church and justly sin. Prayer is where I go. 7 days with no prayer makes 1 week. Absolutely, Kurt. I love that. And people, churches are important because that's where we can gather and find like communities with people who help us grow in our faith and help us hold us accountable. There's some people though that have, those church doors are so heavy. Those church doors are so heavy. And we can pray. And like I said, we have had people that use their hunting stands when they're out in the woods. And today, oh my God, I felt like I was in church when I was on the top of that mountain and I seen this view. Go watch that video. It was absolutely amazing. But for me, it was something I wanted to share with the world. And so I put a video on Facebook and I put a video on whatever. But the thing is that sometimes we just need to share because we feel God moving. I wasn't in a church. I was in God's creation. But it felt like church to me. It felt like a place where I was worshiping God because he was, oh my gosh, it was just really breathtaking. It really was. Some people slowly step away from churches, but they don't go away from God because they're like Kurt and they're praying. And they're praying 7 days in a row so they don't become weak in their heart and they don't come weak with that. But I think sometimes we have to acknowledge the hurt. And there's the boast thing. But you know what? When we acknowledge that hurt, I'm going to see. So one thing I wanted to ask you now is, what does a safe space look like for somebody who has experienced hurt? Not in a church setting just, but has it experienced hurt? What does a safe space look like for them? What do you think? Help me out here. What does a safe space look like for somebody who has experienced hurt? There's a lot. And there's a lot more to my story. And I know there's a lot more to your story. But what is it? What is it? What's a safe space look like? I think acknowledging the hurt, maybe saying and going to the people that hurt me. When I had that conversation and I found out that I dropped the ball and never visited this lady before she died, and that she had been such a big part of the church for so long, but nobody told me. Nobody told me. But we can't push people down for being hurt. We can't explain it away. We can't explain our hurt and our story to somebody else's. We just have to acknowledge it. That hurt me. I was hurt by that. I did not realize how much hurt I had by these people that just kept turning things upside down and backwards, by people that were just struggling and just did not like me or did not want me there or did not acknowledge it, because healing often begins with honesty. And I'll be honest with you, after leaving the institution of the church, it took me 2 years to be able to say these things because I felt guilty about my hurt. And it took me walking in my walk with God and growing in my relationship with God, and then finding the porch and you guys helping me through all of this stuff, whether you like it or not. You guys were a huge part of my healing process, because it wasn't God that I was hurt. It was humans who were hurting. And then that hurt came to me. So I think sometimes, and this is really important, and I want to make sure you hear this. I want you to know that healing is something that we cannot rush. It cannot be rushed. Because sometimes we need to take our time and just sit for a while. We need to breathe. And then when you're ready, we can take a step forward. And we can do it together. And I want to thank you guys for helping me taking that step forward and doing it together. Because I never realized that it was church hurt that was holding me back from my relationship with God. But you don't have to rush healing to begin it. And that's, for me, was the biggest thing that I had to learn. I didn't have to forget about it. It wasn't something that I could just get over. It was something that I had to work through with God. And if you're there, if you've been hurt in a faith setting, just be honest about it. Be open about it. And you know it's okay. Because we all were created uniquely. We were all created differently. We all have different purposes. And the beautiful thing about this is that God created you and He did not make a mistake. Healing is not something we can rush. Now, the porch is not a place where I'm going to say to you, you should just get over it by now. It should be done. Just be done with it. You need to move on. We're never going to say that here on the porch. We're going to say, take your time, sit for a while and breathe. And when you're ready, let's talk about it. And if you're never ready to talk about it, we'll just sit here with you. We'll just sit. Because we don't have to rush healing to begin healing. I really want to push that for you. You do not have to rush healing to start healing from wherever it is. So here's what I want you to hear tonight. Whatever your story is, it doesn't disqualify you from faith. Whether you go to church, whether you don't go to church, your story does not disqualify you from faith. Your hurt does not push God away. Listen to that. Your hurt does not push God away. And whatever you experienced, God was never the one trying to harm you. In fact, He's the one who wants to meet you in the middle of that hurt. This is not an easy conversation. This is not something that is something we can just do. It's something we have to live through. It's something we have to walk through. I think about someone who's been walking through and carrying something heavy, and then once again, let's think about this. They come across the porch, and there's a couple people sitting on the porch, and here's our story, right? They're laughing, they're sharing conversations, and they welcome you on. But you're carrying this hurt, you're carrying this pain. But they're smiling and they're happy, and they say, come on, join us. And you decide to take them up on that invitation. Taking your time, and you just sit for a while and you breathe. And when you're ready, you start sharing your story. That's all God's asking us to do tonight. Because church hurt does happen. It is real. We need to be honest. We need to acknowledge it when we're ready. When we're ready. Let's go to God. God, we thank you for loving us through all of this. Because God, some of us have been hurt by things people said, by things people have done, by feeling unseen, by feeling unheard. And God, sometimes this happens in a church setting. We know it's not you, God. You haven't left us. You haven't forgotten about us. But God, it still hurts. It still hurts. But God, tonight, help us be honest with ourselves and acknowledge that hurt and start healing from it. Because God, we know that you will never leave us. And when we are hurt and we are broken, that you're always there. We thank you for loving us. It's in your name we pray. And they all said, amen. And they all said, amen. And so Kurt says that when I can't visit people who hurt me, they know exactly what they were or are doing. I give it to the good Lord above, and it's heavy on me. It won't be me deciding on their forever. And you know, Kurt, the thing is that one of the things I just want to kind of put in here is as we forgive people, we don't forget. But forgiveness is not for them, it is for you. So taking it to God, praying for them, and letting your heart feel peace from the situation is where God takes you tonight. So I pray, everyone, that you have one of the most amazing nights. Now I'm going to go out and join the campfire, and I pray that God blesses you. And if you have been hurt by the church hurt, send me a message. Let's talk about it a little bit. And, in the next couple of days, I'll be traveling, and so maybe I'll have some time to type. But like I said, know that you are loved, that you are necessary, and that you are important. And I pray that on April 12th, we are going to have our live at Dorset Valley. So come and join us at 3:00 on Sunday. And let's have this will be part of our chat. So have a great night, everybody. God bless. Hope to see you tomorrow. And Chad, thank you for your prayers. And we are praying for all of those in need and that need help. All of those that are experiencing any of the wars or any of the things, those are serving our military who are across the seas and stateside. All of the ones that are standing by, ready to serve. All of the people who are grieving, the caregivers. There's so many people. Tonight, pray for those people who hurt you. That's my challenge for you tonight. Pray for those who hurt you. And know that you are loved. Have a great night, everybody. God bless. Hope to see you in the morning. Love you all. Mwah.